Hey, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of the Cert Life podcast. I'm your host, Brenden Finn, and my co-host here for the evening or day. I guess you're listening to it, so you don't really know what time it is. This is Dan. Dan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, since you don't know this, but you're going to be a regular on the show.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is new information for me, but I'll take it. Yeah, Dan Takata. Yeah, I'm in Minneapolis, and yeah, I am a field certifier / manager /
Everything.
whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
I wear a few hats.
I think that's pretty predominant in this industry. I think a lot of people do that, right?
If you stick around long enough, that's definitely how it goes. Yep.
Yeah. So, like I said, I'm your host, Brenden Finn, and I'm out of Buffalo, New York. I didn't, since this is the first episode, we haven't really gotten into any of the details. I did episode 0, which was like a basic overview because, I have a tendency to listen to podcasts, and half the time I turn them on and they're not what I actually thought they were going to be. So I thought I'd throw out a quick 5-minute thing so, people don't get a little confused on what this podcast is supposed to be about, at least topic-wise, right? So, because we haven't hashed basically anything out, right? We've been
I was going to say, do you even know what this podcast is going to be about?
I mean, about, yes. How we're going to get to the end result, that's a different story, right? We've talked about this and joked around about this for almost months and months and months, and I was finally like, you know what, I can't figure it all out ahead of time, so we might as well just throw some out there and see what sticks, topic wise and all that good stuff. So, we don't really have a show layout, right? It's going to be you, me, some other people. We'll have other people on, have some guests, have some other hosts, and, kind of see how it goes from there. I'd like to do some, expand on how this goes, right? Like right now we were obviously recording, we have video. Everybody that hears this episode 1 there won't be a video for it. I mean, there will be, but it won't be published just because, well, I haven't quite figured that out yet, right? So, baby
So, are you saying I shaved for nothing?
Yeah,
they're not going to see my face on this one.
No, I mean, you didn't have to get all done up for this evening's show, right? So, but no, I mean, I would like to progress into those other things. So I figured, we'll get the regular audio part figured out, and then we'll kind of go from there in baby steps. Maybe even do like a live stream at some point, which I think would be cool. If we have more than 2 listeners, because Cert World's pretty small, but hopefully we'll gain some listeners.
For 4 listeners. I think at 4, I think we'll be good. Yeah.
Call it quits there. We've achieved our goals. Hopefully we'll gain some followers or people that would like to listen and maybe do a live stream, or, we could chit chat with a whole bunch of people or something, or, things like that, or live stream from, some of the industry related types of things, for everybody that's listening out there, I met Dan at the CETA conference, right? I think that's how we originally met, maybe on LinkedIn or online or something like that. But, we more or less met at CETA.
I think LinkedIn came later. I think the initial meet was a bar in Orlando at the CETA meeting.
Who would have thought? Was that a bar, right? Right. And that was the other reasoning behind this podcast, is kind of have more laid back, more of a happy hour type of, setup to discuss things more casually. Because, this field kind of sometimes gets a little stuffy in some of the places that we discuss some of this real technical, regulatory stuff. So, that's another one of the kind of the goals that I had. But yeah, that would be cool to do one of these podcasts from, CETA or a NED conference, or a TAB conference, or HR Expo, or all these other numerous things. Obviously, I think for the specifics we're going to be talking about during the shows, obviously CETA is going to be, right up that alley, since it's going to be mostly certification based stuff. Obviously NEB has a clean room program, and there's, plenty of certification companies that do, are NEB clean room accredited and all of that good stuff, but NEB tends to not have as much of a heavy clean room presence. compared to CETA, obviously, that's specifically what CETA was for. So we'll see.
Right. I mean, our local NEB conference here is, our company's the only one there representing clean room testing, and we usually show up with 2 or 3 people. So yeah, it's a room of 80 people, and most of them are test and balance.
Yeah, and for everybody listening out there, I dabble in both worlds, right? I'm a balancer, TAB accredited, NEB accredited, and I'm also a clean room guy. I do both, and I've done both for over 20 years. And you can go back and forth. It is possible. It's a lot more knowledge. You see it occasionally, but mostly it's one or the other. And it's not because of the technical aspect of the work. I think it's more of how the companies kind of have to manage the projects, right? They're like night and day compared to how they operate and how they do things. So I think that's really the challenge with kind of going back and forth between both of them. But so I mean, going to different shows, I think that would be cool, right? Do like those you see on all the social media types of live interview types of things, just camera, microphone in the face. We could like surprise everybody with like these, surprise interviews or something totally cheesy like that. Something different, ambush. Right? Yeah. Yeah. I like it. We'll have to do shots, right? We'll have to feed our guests shots and then like truth serum basically, and get them rambling, right? Then we don't have to talk as much.
Yep.
But, yeah, so I don't know. Are you going to any upcoming conferences? Obviously CETA is in. Hold on, let me look. I think CETA is in.
It's in April. I forget the exact dates. I know it's the end of April. It's Orlando, so that'll represent where you and I had met. Might actually bring the family. Might actually turn it into a little Disney trip, but
oh, nice.
That'll depend on bank account, of course.
Yeah. It was. I somehow end up in Orlando like pretty regularly. I just do. I was just down there. I was down there like 3 months before that. Like, and it's always for different things, right? It's like a conference, and then I also do a lot of like running and triathlons and stuff like that. So I was down there for a race a couple months ago, and then we were going on vacation, so we swung through there, which yeah, obviously now is not the time to be in Florida. They're having they got a whole lot to deal with right now. But yeah, it will be nice to get back down there. I'm looking it up right now so we can give, if I can find it, an actual date. I don't know why.
Yeah, not just my ballpark of sometime at the end of April, I think 25th or something.
I don't know why. Like they CETA's website is not my preferred website to ever look at because it's always kind of April 25th through 28th. How about that in Orlando? Yeah. Their website doesn't even come up when you search it. Like it comes up, but you have to be very specific. It doesn't have a good SEO setup for that one. But yeah, so Orlando is actually, that's not the next thing that I'm going to. I'm going to be going to the AHR Expo, which is a big, HVAC, general HVAC show. It's the largest like HVAC expo in the world. And believe it or not, it's in Orlando. So I will be back there again. That's in February. That's like the ASHRAE has their conference in conjunction with the HR Expo, and it's a lot of, manufacturers and equipment manufacturers and companies. Just, they showcase their stuff, new equipment. Like that's where a lot of the new industry stuff comes out. They launch it there because it's a massive show. There's tons of people, and it's a good show. They have classes, they have all kinds of stuff. A lot of it's free. They actually have a section called the Podcast Pavilion, and they have a bunch of shows that actually do podcasts from there. So maybe we need to grow our follower base, and we can do a show from the HR Expo. I think that'd be super cool.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm surprised you haven't purchased your table there yet.
Yeah, I'll get right on that.
While you're at it, since you voluntold me to be a regular co-host, you going to send me some headphones?
Yeah, I'll get you some headphones and a better setup. So we'll work on the audio. This is all part of the let's just get this show started, and then we'll progress from there, right?
Yeah, let's just
We'll
talk
see how
into
it
our
goes.
laptops for right now and see who
Yeah.
listens.
I mean, I'm looking at my computer right now, and I'm crystal clear, and you are not so crystal clear. So we'll work
I
on
was going
that.
to say the same thing about you. In my computer
Yeah.
screen right now, you are just nothing but pixels and grainy red
Yeah.
blob.
So that's my red hoodie that I have on. So yeah, we'll work on that and see how it goes. Because I don't know if it could be the way I have the software set up. I honestly couldn't tell you, but we'll work through that as we move along, right? So, but yeah, AHR is going to be in February. Then CETA is coming up. I'm trying to think of what else do most people go to. What's the one that's always at the Javits Center? There's a big what is that called? I'm drawing a blank. It's in New York City.
I've got no idea.
There's a big clean interfex.
Interfex, I think I've heard of that one. Yeah.
Yeah. That one, I don't know when that one is. I've never been to that one. I always see a bunch of people going, and I probably should go since it is, Interfex. It's looks like, nope, that's from 2024, so that's not going to work. April 1st through the 3rd of next year on the Javits Center in New York City. So it's right down in the mix of things. So, I mean, unfortunately, it seems like all these shows always, like, not always overlap, but they're so close to each other. I can't always go to very many of them just because I'm like, oh, I can't go show hopping when, I do have to make some money.
Yeah.
I probably should feed my family and all that good stuff, right? So, I can't just go on the tour. That would be nice, but it's not always feasible. So,
yeah, aside from CETA coming up, I don't have any big conferences on my agenda. It's pretty much just actually this week we have our local NEB chapter seminar, so that'll be on Thursday. But no big conferences for me aside from CETA.
Yeah. And then do you do, for anybody listening, the CETA conference has like a seminar before the actual conference, right? Where there's, they have classes, different tracks for classes, and things like that. And I guess full disclosure, right? So I sit on, one of the CAG committees for CETA that actually wrapped up. And then also, we just started the grant committee, which I'm a part of as well. So not that I'm like going to only push CETA, but just, I am involved, but I'm involved in everything,
but you
right?
do know CETA, so you might as well talk about it since you know CETA.
But it's not just that. It's not like because I'm involved, I want to only talk about CETA, right? Because I've been involved with NEB. I've sat on NEB committees. I've sat on TAB committees. I've written exams, certification exams for TAB and all of that stuff, and been involved with they developed like ANSI accredited exams, and there's some other stuff involved with training. I've been a TAB instructor for a long time, so I kind of been around the industry and been involved in a lot of things. So hopefully I don't want to say opinions, but my views, I will try to be fairly unbiased, when we're on the podcast. I don't have any necessarily allegiance to anybody in particular or anything specific. This show is just about the industry, right? And helping it move forward, kind of connecting all the dots, getting people together, right? So, and I kind of touched upon that in episode 0, and I don't know what your take is, but like, if you don't go to the shows, because I feel like a lot of new people that are in this industry, they don't always get to go to the shows. I get it, right? Like companies aren't going to spend thousands of dollars to send a brand new employee to a conference or something like that, or companies that have, tons of employees, they can't obviously send everybody to the shows, right? So sometimes you're kind of on an island, right? This industry is not super large, so there's not like there's local chapters of certifiers that go, shoot the shit at the bar, all, whether, I mean, maybe you do with your coworkers, but, as an industry, sometimes you don't get a lot of exposure to, other people in the industry, or other ideas in the industry, or other companies in the industry,
Right.
or, just even across the country, right? So, sometimes in other industries, like I know in the tab industry, different parts of the country kind of do things very differently with how they're set up and who does what, and things like that. So it's just nice, and I was hoping this podcast would kind of like bring that atmosphere, kind of hanging out, after party type of get the
After party, let's talk about work.
yeah, basically, right?
Yeah, for
So
me, I've always tried to bring a mix. Have a few experienced techs and then a few of the junior techs, because just myself, I remember the first CETA meeting that I went to, and before going to that one, I was a 3 or 4 year tech at that point, and I was on an island, and I'm like, okay, cool. We do this weird testing for places. My friends all think that I go into rooms and I physically like mop the floors and clean the rooms. But my boss here, he's saying, okay, this is how you do this. I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. But then to see, several hundred people across the country who do the same thing, it's kind of eye opening. You're like, oh, this is a real thing. This isn't just, some guy for this company that I work for saying, hey, do this test. There is something behind it.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is like you said, it's very, I know when I first started, we, still did a lot of formaldehyde decons, right? So I remember first starting in this industry, and somebody was teaching me how to do this, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding. We're like literally using hot plates and like pie tins that we just went to the department store and got some, and we're like, it was like a garage experiment. Like it seemed
right.
So I'm like, there's no way that this is how it's done everywhere, right? But it was like, that's literally how it was done.
Yep.
And but yeah, in the grand scheme of things, the industry, I don't want to say it's new. It's definitely not a newer industry, but I think because it's on a smaller scale than a lot of others, and it's people just like you and I kind of developed a lot of this stuff as things evolve slowly, but like you said, you feel like you're on an island sometimes, and then you meet everybody like, oh, okay, just you do that, and oh, that's a good idea. Maybe I'll incorporate that into my workflow or something along those lines. Like, it's definitely helpful getting out there and talking to people. Like, it's not like a rivalry, like, oh, they work for somebody else. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's enough work for everybody.
Some people it is. That's just a norm.
Yeah, I think, I guess, everybody's different, right? And how they handle, who they view as, the enemy or something. I don't know. Some people are like that, I can't help that. But I feel like there's enough work for everybody everywhere. Even locally, the people that I, obviously bid work against or, compete with for work, I feel like there's enough of it for all of us, regardless. It's, at the end of the day, it's work. So I'm more of a, attract, what's that saying go? You attract bees with honey, or however, whatever that is. I'm so bad with pulling those things up.
That sounds right, I guess.
Now, if we're talking movie quotes, we could do that. Like we'll probably end up referencing movie quotes throughout this podcast, and we'll probably have to make sure that everybody knows what the hell we're talking about. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that's a good, kind of overview of what we're trying to get done here. Is kind of reignite some of those conversations between people and pull things together a little more. The topics, right? So moving forward, as we do episodes, what I'd like to see is have like, we discuss a topic, right? So the shows, we're right around 20 minutes right now in our ramblings about absolutely nothing but just some conferences. But I would like to keep them between 20 to 30 minutes, because I feel like, you're driving to work or you're driving home from work or whatever, and you could get through an episode or what have you. Plus, I don't know if I want to talk more than 20 minutes about anything in this industry. No, I'm just kidding.
You don't want to go 3 hours?
Yeah, no, I mean, well, some of the topics you really can, right? And maybe we'll have to break those into multiple episodes.
Right.
Which is, entirely feasible. but this wasn't going to be like a teaching podcast, right? Like, it's not going to be like, oh, today we're going to talk about how you do this. Like, that wasn't really I have no intention of doing anything like that. It's more like, I'm going to talk about something and you'll be like, no, you don't do that. That's not how you do it, jackass. Like, you're supposed to do it this way or whatever. And we could both be right. But, I feel like that's just, sometimes that needs to happen for things to kind of progress and get better. But,
right, absolutely. And I figure both of us will probably ramble a decent amount on things that, we've come up with. That's basically, the tribal knowledge type stuff, the stuff that every company's trained differently because, this guy did it this way 30 years ago and, trained all his techs this way, who trained, every new generation of techs that way. So yeah, we'll definitely touch on all that stuff.
Yeah. And I know, I don't want to, we're definitely not old timers, right? So, and we're not noobs. So I don't know, maybe we're called mid timers, right? Well, I would like to not prefer not to be called an old timer, and I don't feel like it, and I don't think I am, right? Because there's still a lot of people in this industry. Boomer. Hey, pipe down over there. So there are still a lot of very knowledgeable people in this industry that have been around since very early on in this industry, right? And I'm clearly not one of those people. But like we were saying, like we're all on our own little islands, right? Well, just think about when those people first started some of these first certification companies. There was no internet. I mean, I remember when I first started. Oh, I'm going to date myself here. We like cell phones just became a thing, right? I mean, pagers were still around. Pagers. So the idea of how all these companies started across the country with probably minimal interaction with each other, to besides like the main, back in the day, obviously CETA wasn't even around. So I'm sure they saw each other at maybe certain things, or I don't even know. But I feel like that's part of how everything kind of turned into the way it is, where people do things different because everybody kind of started off on their own and developed their own method of getting to that end result. And they obviously carry through the times. That's, I think, how a lot of that kind of progressed. And now we have this wonderful technology, right? Like we're sitting multiple states away and, we're chit-chatting on camera, on audio, and I'm going to be able to put this out to the masses more or less, as soon as we're done talking.
I don't know if you can say masses, with single digit viewership.
That is true.
But well, maybe you know what? Let's inflate our egos a little bit. Yes, we're going to give this to the masses.
The masses of people in our industry, which is probably going to be the 4 people that want to listen to us, right? But yeah, so I mean, I don't know. What do you want to? What's a good topic? You're gonna have to come on for episode 2 because we'll segue into that with a topic you would like to discuss. I'm gonna let you pick the topic for episode 2. How about that? And let me see. We have a shared. This is as technical as we got. We do have a shared folder, right? We're like getting super fancy.
I think you sent me the link to the shared folder. I don't know if I've gone on there yet.
And you've probably never looked at it, right?
No, sir.
Well, if you get around to it, the shared folder has some episode ideas. And in parentheses, I've put not in any particular order. Since I like to make lists, right? Maybe that's the boomer in me and me getting forgetful in my old age, but lists. I'm like, I never did this before. Although I will say I don't use paper for anything. So at least I got that going for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I make lists of everything. Everything has a list. I have lists for my lists. And so I do have a list for the podcast episode ideas. All right. Do you want to hear them? Because since you didn't look at that folder.
Yeah.
This is in our share folder. But I'll list them, right? So intro, I guess that would be this episode, right? How about vehicles, truck setups, right? How everybody does their like load up and, obviously this industry, we use a lot of test equipment. We're in and out of places, got a lot of stuff to lug around. So how do you do it? Not everybody does everything the same way. There's a bazillion different ways and different types of methods for getting your stuff in and out of jobs and to places from places. So I thought that'd be a good idea. Obviously, decons, I already talked about, death gassing with formaldehyde. That's a slang term that we use between me and some coworkers for deconning. We call it death gassing. So, we could talk about decons, how you do them, deconning different things, different pieces of equipment besides safety cabinets, maybe rooms or, centrifuges or all different kinds of things.
Well, to be honest, I did my first decon in probably 7 or 8 years the other day. It was actually my first time using a chlorine dioxide kit. Prior to that, it was at my first company I was with, and it was formaldehyde on plates.
Nice. So did you use the DRS labs, the mini CD?
Yeah,
is that what you guys use? Yeah.
Yep. We have 3 of the DRS mini CD systems.
Nice. I think, well, guest wise, I would like I haven't reached out to anybody, like nobody yet, as far as having guests on the show, but that would be having somebody from DRS Labs. Obviously, Mike Regetz. Mike was the very first person that I worked with at a job when I first started. So, but I would like to have the DRS guys on here, right? They have a ton of knowledge about decons and all that good stuff. I mean, it might get a little sales pitchy, obviously, with their company, right? But, that's fine too. But they have a lot of knowledge to pass on. So I thought maybe having somebody on from there would be a cool idea. All right, so getting back to the list. I have tools. You can do a whole episode on something basic like tools, right? Even something goofy like hand tools. Like we even go overboard. I have autoclavable hand tools. I have 2 autoclaves. So, just in case it has to be, so if we work at somebody that's real stringent about stuff, if we have to autoclave hand tools to take them inside, we can do that. Obviously, I don't think a lot of people do that, but I mean, there's just different things. Maybe somebody's never even thought about that. It's not that expensive. It's pretty easy to do. So something like that. Oh, here's always a hot button topic: photometers, right?
Oh,
that's like the blue and the red. It's that could divide this whole industry. I feel like everybody's very, very passionate about the test equipment they use, right? Well, so I think that would be a good show.
And so yeah, we have a mix. So blue versus red. Yeah, I've got a little of each.
Yeah. We do too. And but I thought that would be a good show, right? And some of the new things that have come out, even having some of the photometer company, like a lot of the equipment that we use, I feel like they would be perfect guests to have on the shows, reps from the companies, right? To talk about upcoming things they have going, or maybe they can get some exposure or feedback from some of our guests or not guests, but some of our listeners or anybody like that.
Right.
I think that'd be a good topic. Number 6 on my list is labs. Nasty labs, right? We've all been in them. Just absolutely, like you walk in, you get a headache. Like it's just some nasty, nasty stuff. And I guess 6 goes along with 7, which is weird stuff that you've seen, at sites. Obviously, we're going to keep it generic. You don't want to call anybody out or, name drop anything like that. But some stuff that we do in this industry can be strange, right? Like it's a little odd. Some of it's just odd. Some of the companies they do very strange things because it's, life sciences and stuff sometimes gets a little interesting. So that would be another topic.
And it's not just labs we're going into. It's not just pharmacies. There's all different types of manufacturing. So you get a good mix of weird things.
Yeah, and this isn't like, we mentioned CETA. CETA gets pretty pigeonholed into the pharmacy industry. Obviously, this podcast isn't just about pharmacies. It's not just about pharma. I mean, I do some microelectronics, not a lot. It's just not real heavy in the areas that you might be in. There's actually surprisingly a decent amount of aerospace where I'm at. I don't really do a whole lot of it, but there is a lot here. So yeah, like you're saying, it's not just the clean room stuff, right? We see a whole bunch of different things. A lot of university work. I mean, that's predominant in pretty much every area. There's always like university work with research labs, things like that. So yeah, we definitely dabble in a whole bunch of cool industries for sure. What else we got on here? Industry events and conferences. We kind of actually already talked about that today. I think maybe that stuff will come up as they get closer, right? Like, leading up to those events, maybe we'll discuss them more so people are more aware of them. What number is it? 8. Reporting and software, right? That's always an interesting topic. I always like to see.
Oh yeah.
Some people are real apprehensive about letting you see their reports. Like, I never really got that. I never really understood that. I mean, you have to get all the data to your customers. So yours might look different than mine, but I don't really understand why. It's not like I'm stealing your software. I'm just looking at your report. And usually it's not even about gaining any knowledge of your competitors, right? It's just like, sometimes I see things, I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. Like, oh, maybe this should be on the left. Oh, that's easier to read, right? Because I lay my reports out like kind of how I test, which isn't necessarily the best way to do it, but it's the easiest way to fill it out. From somebody that reads the reports, sometimes I try to get feedback from my customers, and a lot of customers are just like, yeah, it's fine. And, sometimes when I look at other reports, it's nice to kind of get like, oh, that's a great idea. Think out of the box a little bit, because
most of our customers just want the pass or fail to be visible. And that's really it. Because then it goes into filing.
Yeah. You can give them like an 800-page report and they're like, can I just get a cover sheet that says pass or fail for every item in here? Because that's really all I want to see, right? There's a lot of customers out there that are like that.
Pharmacy.
And then you have a lot of customers that go through your reports with a fine-tooth comb. They're like, you didn't capitalize this letter, and you're like, oh, let me fix that for you. Which isn't a bad thing, right? Data and data integrity is a very important part of this industry. And
that's the difference between sending reports to a pharmacy manager versus med device QA.
Yeah, exactly. And I think with all this technology we have out there, like, I think that aspect of this industry should move forward more, right? Like, it should be more integrated. I'm a geeky tech person. I love technology, even though I'm like not good at any of it. Even getting on here, right? I couldn't even get my goddamn headphones to work, but I love it. Like, even though I'm absolutely no good at it. And I just feel like with all this technology we have now, right? Like software and tablets and, cameras and all this crap, even our test instruments are, they're all, you can use Bluetooth for everything now. I feel like our data recording and reporting should be a lot easier than it tends to be. I mean, I've gotten new customers that have given me reports that are handwritten still. I mean, Now I know in some cases that is warranted, because I have worked at places that want you to physically handwrite everything while you're there on site. And literally give them a copy at the end of the day, and the paperwork doesn't ever leave. And I know that's a thing, but that's not industry wide, right? It's usually very customer specific for certain places. And obviously in those scenarios, what I'm talking about kind of goes out the window. But for the run of the most things, I feel like integration could be a little better with that stuff. But yeah, and then of course, we can always have all the topics about all the wonderful things we work on, like safety cabinets and clean benches, and how everybody calls the same thing different things, and then we all don't realize we're all talking about the same thing all the time. All that good stuff. All that good stuff.
The good stuff.
So you have homework, right? As you're gonna have to you are tasked with coming up with the next show's topic. How do you feel about that?
I'll take it.
All right.
Voluntold once again.
Yes. Well, let's. We will. Oh, look, we're at 35 minutes already. See, we can ramble like a bunch of old people sitting and having coffee on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, let's ramble more. Let's do this.
Yeah. Well, you can work on your homework, and we'll let everybody go for the time being. And and then we'll come back. We'll reconvene for episode 2, and we'll come up with a good topic for everybody. Maybe.
All right, sir.
If you want to have a guest on for episode 2, we could just roll right into guests even. We'll have to start sending out those emails. So, all right. Well, if you liked our first episode of the podcast, make sure you follow us. We are currently only on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. That will start broadening once I have 5 seconds to myself to kind of expand our where our stuff is listed. And if anybody has,
are there other ones?
I think those are the major ones, right? But
I'm not really savvy with podcasts. I know Apple. That's about it.
I think that's where everybody would get them from. I think there might be like 1 or 2 other major ones out there. iHeartRadio, possibly. But I think most of the other ones are fairly small. I mean, if nobody can use Apple Podcasts, Amazon, or Spotify, I think we're in trouble. But I think that's a good start. So eventually we'll have a YouTube, presence, because I think YouTube would be the next place people would look. But yeah, and if anybody has any comments, questions, show ideas, the email address is show@certlifepodcast.com. And don't email me there, Dan, because I won't answer you.
Darn it.
All right. Well, yeah. So like I said, show@certlifepodcast.com if anybody has any comments, questions, or ideas. And yeah, or if you're listening and you want to be on the show, right? We just have random people on the show. That'd be good.
Yeah, you can ramble with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. Well, until next time, we'll talk to you then. Actually, we'll talk at you, right? We're not really talking to them. We're talking at them.
Right.
But, semantics. So, all right. Well, we'll see you for episode 2. Take care.